Hey everyone, welcome back to our Deep Sleep Optimization Series Part 3. And so far in our Deep Sleep Optimization Series, we've learned about why deep sleep is so crucial for our health and recovery and growth hormone optimization. We've learned how to perfect and optimize our circadian rhythms for the best sleep possible. And we've also learned easy to incorporate ways, lifestyle hacks if you will, to limit our EMF exposure, ensuring that we get the best sleep possible. And so if you haven't checked those out first, check those articles and videos out first, because that really sets the foundation. Because now we're going to go into more and more details on how to perfect sleep, but we really want to get the basics down first, and that's what those first videos will learn. Now, besides optimizing your circadian rhythm and your EMF exposure, we're going to go over additional steps to optimize our sleep environment so you can ramp up your deep sleep. And this is going to ensure your body's able to regenerate and repair itself to its best capability in the most efficient way possible. And the topics we're going to go over today and explore today are body temperature, substances that interrupt your sleep. We're going to go over exercise timing, and we're going to go over air quality. So the first thing I want to talk about is how to optimize our body temperature. Now, our body temperature is regulated by our circadian rhythm. So we have these natural fluctuations of temperature throughout the day. In fact, your body temperature is at its very peak in the late afternoon, around 3 or 4, and then it goes down and starts to cool towards the evening, getting to about its low point at around 4 a.m. But the key point here is that your body temperature naturally decreases throughout the evening. And so what we need to do is we need to make sure that we give our body in an environment where it's low temperature to actually allow our body to kind of decrease its core temperature 2 to 3 degrees. And so if your room is too warm, it's going to prevent you from getting that deep sleep because your core temperature is not going to be able to decrease, which is a signal to get that deep sleep. And what's interesting is that your body, your room temperature actually needs to be about 60 to 67 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, for a lot of people, that's going to seem very, very low. I know a lot of rooms and people like to keep their temperatures at around 70, 72, 73. That's too warm. And you're actually going to notice your deep sleep is going to suffer because of that. So try to aim for your room temperature between 60 to 67 degrees Fahrenheit. And what I do in ways to kind of get my room temperature and get my body temperature down to its core where I can reduce it 2 to 3 degrees at night to get the best sleep possible is I always have windows open. And in Southern California where I live, that's easy because the air is usually fresh and it's pretty crisp and cool for 3 seasons. But in the summertime, opening the windows is not going to get my room to 60 to 67 degrees. So that's why I utilize a kind of a space air conditioner out my window just in my master bedroom so I can keep my air quality and my air temperature as cold as possible within that 60 to 67 degree range. I usually aim around 65, 66. And another thing I do is I like to use this cooling system in my bed. Now there's different systems out there. I personally use something called the Chili Pad. Just know that this is basically like a mattress topper that goes over your mattress. And you can basically tell the machine what temperature you want between anywhere from 55 degrees to I think it's 78 degrees or something like that. And you can tell what temperature you want that water to circulate through that mattress topper. And so I set it at 55 degrees, so I have this 55 degree water circulating right underneath my body, and it really keeps me cool. But just as a side note, I run very warm. And so anything I can do to lower my body temperature really helps me out a great deal. So you can try that, but it is a little expensive, so it's not necessary. An air conditioner or something like that could be just fine. Another thing I do is you can take extremely hot showers or baths right before bed. Now you might be thinking, wait a minute, why would I want to take a hot shower or something warm before bed when I'm actually trying to lower my core temperature by 2 to 3 degrees? And it's a great question, but what happens is that when you take a hot shower before bed, and there's a lot of studies out there, it causes your blood vessels to dilate at the surface of your body. And so when your blood vessels are dilating, it's causing a lot of heat from your core to dissipate out through your surrounding area. And so it actually causes a lowering of your core body temperature when you take a hot bath at night. And sometimes people have noticed benefits where they take a really hot shower and they end it with some cold exposure, like a cold shower. You can try that. That actually helps me too. But what the studies show is that doing a hot bath or hot shower before bed really helps ramp up that sleep quality and deep sleep. Another thing you can do is you can try sleeping with socks on. And it sounds weird, but it really goes with the same purpose and the same kind of intuition as taking a hot shower before bed. Because when you wear socks, again, it causes those blood vessels to dilate at the surface of your lower body, causing more heat to dissipate. So doing that is a good way to lower your body temperature 2 to 3 degrees at night, which is what you want for the best sleep possible. And the fifth little step I have for you to lower your body temperature is sleep naked. Now, you don't have to sleep completely naked, but just try to wear as minimal clothing as possible, and that'll obviously help you keep very cool at night. So to optimize our air quality, the 3 things I like to do, and as I mentioned before, is I always keep my windows open. When your windows are open, you're always letting that fresh air inside, which is really giving you the optimal amount of oxygen and CO2 in your system so you can breathe efficiently. The other thing I do is I load my house with indoor plants. That really helps optimize air quality. Not only does it increase oxygen in the air, but it also releases negative ions into the air. And if you remember back from our last video, when we are grounding or earthing to the Earth's natural surface, we're absorbing those negative ions, which has a host of benefits, including being a very potent anti-inflammatory. So load your house with indoor plants. It's going to really help your air quality. And the third thing I do is I put a few HEPA air filters in my house. So the HEPA air filters, and that just helps get rid of dust mites, pet dander, and also they have UV settings which can kill a lot of the microbes and viruses. So I think those are 3 great things to do to optimize your air quality so you can get the best sleep possible. The third point I want to talk about is we got to be aware and be mindful of avoiding substances that negatively affect your sleep, especially these substances consuming late at night. And these substances include caffeine, and we all know what caffeine can do. Obviously, it's not great because it's a stimulant, but what most people don't know is that the half-life of caffeine is 6 hours for the average person, which means that after you consume a cup of coffee, you're still going to have half that caffeine content in your brain 6 hours later, which again is not conducive for deep sleep quality. Another thing we want to do is we want to reduce or eliminate alcohol in the evenings. Because alcohol, yes, sometimes alcohol can help people get to sleep. But what it does is it actually negatively impacts your sleep quality, especially your REM sleep. So you want to make sure you either eliminate or just limit your alcohol intake to like 1 glass in the evening so you don't negatively impact that REM state of sleep and your quality of sleep overall. And similar to alcohol, one thing you want to avoid late at night is also THC from cannabis. Because THC, again, like alcohol, can help you get to sleep faster, but you're gonna be sacrificing the quality of your sleep by negatively impacting your REM sleep, which we obviously don't want to do. So make sure we avoid those late at night, at least limit them if anything. And one thing we got to understand is that sedation and unconsciousness is not synonymous, is not the same as sleep. Most people think, oh, alcohol, THC, it gets me to sleep, and I'm almost like sedated, unconscious. No, they're not different. You can be unconscious by getting smacked in a baseball bat, but that's not the same thing as sleep. So we want to make sure we avoid these substances that negatively impact the quality of our sleep and our REM sleep. And CBD seems to be a little bit different than THC, where CBD, you don't see those negative impacts of your REM sleep when we consume those. But what they found is that CBD in small doses actually promotes wakefulness. But CBD in larger doses actually seems to give you a relaxing and basically promotes sleep. So the doses that you do CBD with are very important based on what kind of reaction you want. So if you want to be, if you're going to kind of promote your sleep, aim for higher doses of that. And another thing we want to do and be mindful of is avoid late night theobromine. Theobromine is a stimulant substance that's naturally found in dark chocolate. and dark chocolate also contains trace amounts of caffeine. So I know it can be difficult to limit dark chocolate at night, but it might be a good thing for you to do, especially to increase your deep sleep. And so it's a kind of a double-edged sword where a lot of people like to do sweets and end our dinner or late night with a kind of a healthy dessert, and dark chocolate is probably one of the healthiest things you can do. However, it does have those two stimulant properties that may negatively impact your deep sleep. So just be mindful of that. I would say stop consuming dark chocolate for at least a couple weeks and see how it changes your deep sleep scores. And if you see improvements, then you may want to avoid it altogether and only consume that, earlier in the day. Now, the last thing I want to talk about in terms of avoiding substances or avoiding doing things later in the evening that basically destroy your sleep, and that's you want to avoid eating too late in the evening, because eating too late negatively impacts your health in a few ways. And I know we've all heard this, try to eat, last meal 2 to 3 hours before bedtime. We've heard this, but it's a lot harder to incorporate. I know for me, it's very difficult, especially when you get off work late and you have to do dinner and then an hour later you're going to bed. But we really should try to arrange our lifestyle and our schedule so we can at least have a couple hour break before we go to bed, because there's a few things. When you eat really close before bed, what it's going to do, it's going to raise your blood sugar. Now, a lot of times when you raise your blood sugar, insulin gets released by the pancreas, but it kind of overshoots it a little bit. So if you overshoot insulin, it's then going to cause a subsequent crash in your blood sugar. When your blood sugar crashes, you get hypoglycemia, which is low blood sugar, and then your sympathetic nervous system, your fight or flight nervous system, actually gets activated and starts pumping cortisol out into your system, which then will cause you to awaken, as well as having you basically make it very difficult for you to fall back asleep. So eating before bed can cause reactive hypoglycemia, which activates your sympathetics, increases cortisol, which basically prevents you from sleeping throughout the night. So avoid that. And also too, another thing that eating late in the night do is you're consuming all these calories, but you can't really use those calories because you're in you're asleep. Your body's not going to be able to utilize those calories. So what you want to do is these excess free radicals will cause inflammatory responses, ramp up your metabolism. At times you don't really want to do that because you're going to be sleeping. So for a few reasons, it's really good to avoid late night eating before bed. And the last thing I want to talk about is we got to make sure we're timing our exercise properly. Now, exercise in general basically balances out your circadian rhythm. It improves every parameter of your sleep. So exercise is fantastic. And what's interesting is even vigorous strength training exercise seems to especially increase your deep sleep. And the reason is that after you do vigorous strength training, this is going to cause your body to need that extra repair, because you've basically been breaking down all that muscle tissue. And those repair processes, as you remember, occur during deep sleep. So strength training, especially intense strength training, basically causes some acute muscle damage, which is good, but then it naturally stimulates your body to want to repair that, which happens during deep sleep, which is why strength training, people who do that get better deep sleep. Now, here's the thing. The timing of your exercise matters because exercise activates your sympathetic fight or flight nervous system, which is not what you want right before bed. Because to get the best sleep possible, you want to get your parasympathetic nervous system activated, and you want it to be firing on all cylinders. So this is what you do. You should strength train, you should exercise for sure, just not too close to bedtime. Because the take-home point here is that strength training increases all phases of your sleep, especially your deep sleep. Just make sure that you're not doing it too late too late in the evening, because it can impair your repair mechanisms, because it's not going to allow you to get deep sleep because of that sympathetic overload right before bed. And so as a review, we basically just went over all of the things that you can do to optimize your environment to sleep your best. And we specifically went over ways in this video to optimize our body temperature, to time our exercise correctly, to optimize air quality, as well as to avoid substances late at night that can impede your deep sleep. So we went over all of those, and my number one goal for you is optimal human performance. And We want this in every phase of life. And I love this quote from Dr. Matthew Walker, who's the sleep doctor. And he says, "There is no physiological system in the body and no operation of the brain that isn't wonderfully enhanced by sleep when you get it, or demonstrably impaired when you don't get enough." And so sleep can either make or break your health. It's really that simple. And so I'm going to leave you with that quote. If you want some more lifestyle tips, go to DrMichaelVan and download my free loaded information-packed ebook, absolutely free, DrMichaelVan.com. And we'll see you next time for our last part of our deep sleep optimization series. We're going to talk about how to biohack your sleep, as well as optimal supplements that you can take to get the best sleep possible. Stay tuned.